The courtroom smelled of old wood and fear, a stench that clung to the air like a guilty verdict. Laughter sharp, cruel, and unapologetic cut through the murmurs, spilling from the lips of 3 white police officers seated at the defense table. They didn't see her yet, the woman in the tailored suit, her dark skin gleaming under the fluorescent lights, her eyes burning with a fire that could melt steel. Amara Jackson stood at the back of the room, unnoticed, her FBI badge tucked inside her blazer. She'd spent 30 years climbing a ladder rigged to collapse beneath her, every rung slick with prejudice. Every promotion a battle against whispers that she didn't belong. Today, though, wasn't about her past. It was about justice for a man who'd never get to tell his story. A man whose life ended in a pool of blood on a Baltimore sidewalk, gunned down by the very officers now chuckling like they'd already won. The judge's gavel cracked, silencing the room. "Order!" he barked, his voice heavy with exasperation. The officers, detectives Ryan Holt, Michael Crane, and Patrick Dunn leaned back, smirking, their blue uniforms crisp, badges glinting like trophies. They'd been here before, Amara knew. Excessive force, racial profiling, a black man dead for looking suspicious. The same script, different names. This time it was Marcus Wells, 27, father of 2, shot 7 times while reaching for his phone. The body cam footage malfunctioned. The witnesses unreliable. The system, as always, tilted in their favor. Amara's pulse thrummed as she stepped forward, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Every eye in the room followed her, some curious, others hostile. The prosecutor, a wiry man named Ellis, glanced up from his notes, startled. He hadn't expected her, not yet. She told no one she was coming, not even her team at the FBI. This was personal. "Counselor, who is this?" the judge demanded, peering over his glasses. Ellis stammered, "Your Honor, this is... I'll introduce myself." Amara cut in, her voice steady but laced with steel. She reached into her blazer, pulling out the badge that had defined her life's work. The room seemed to hold its breath as she held it aloft, the gold emblem catching the light. Amara Jackson, Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The officer's laughter died like a snuffed flame. Holt's smirk froze, his jaw twitching. Crane's eyes widened, his fingers gripping the table's edge. Dunn, the youngest, paled, his bravado crumbling. The courtroom buzzed, a low hum of shock rippling through the crowd. Amara didn't flinch. She'd seen that look before, fear dressed up as arrogance, the kind that came when men like them realized the game had changed. "Your Honor," she continued, her gaze locking onto the officers. "I'm here to testify as a witness to the events of June 12, 2024, the night Marcus Wells was killed. I was there. I saw everything." The judge leaned forward, his skepticism palpable. "Director Jackson, this is highly irregular. Why wasn't this disclosed earlier?" "Because I needed to be sure," Amara said, her voice unwavering. Sure that the truth wouldn't be buried under red tape or malfunctioning evidence. Marcus Wells deserves better than that. His family deserves better. The crowd murmured, a mix of support and disbelief. Amara's eyes flicked to the front row, where Marcus's mother, Grace, sat clutching a photo of her son. Tears streaked her face, but her chin was high, her grief a quiet defiance. Amara gave her a nod, a silent promise. "I'm here for him, for you." She turned back to the judge. "I have evidence, undisputable evidence, that these officers acted with premeditated malice, and I'm prepared to present it." The room erupted. Reporters scribbled furiously, spectators whispered, and the officers exchanged panicked glances. Holt, the ringleader, leaned toward his lawyer, muttering something sharp. Amara caught the word lie and felt her blood boil. She'd spent decades swallowing that word, hearing it hissed behind her back at every precinct, every boardroom, every step of her career. Not today. "Order!" the judge roared, slamming his gavel again. "Director Jackson, you will take the stand." Amara strode to the witness box, her movements deliberate, every step a declaration of intent. She swore the oath, her voice clear, her eyes never leaving the officers. The prosecutor approached, visibly nervous. Director, please state what you witnessed on the night of June 12th. Amara took a breath, the memory flooding back like a wound torn open. She'd been in Baltimore for a classified operation, off-duty, walking back to her hotel when she heard the shouts. Marcus's voice, panicked but calm, saying, "I'm not armed. I'm just reaching for my phone." Then the gunfire, 7 shots, each one a thunderclap in the quiet night. She'd rounded the corner just in time to see Marcus collapse, his phone skittering across the pavement. Holt stood over him, gun still raised, barking at Crane and Dunn to secure the scene. No CPR, no call for help, just cold efficiency. "I saw Detective Holt fire the fatal shots," Amara said, her voice cutting through the silence. "I saw Detective Crane tamper with the body cam, pulling the battery before it could record. I saw Detective Dunn plant a knife near Marcus's body, claiming it was his." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Grace sobbed, her hands trembling. The officer's lawyer shot up. "Objection. This is hearsay, Your Honor. No prior notice. No corroboration." "Overruled," the judge snapped. "Continue, Director." Amara's eyes bored into Holt's. "I recorded it all on my phone. The footage is clear, time-stamped, and already in FBI custody. It shows everything, every shot, every lie, every second of Marcus Wells's life being stolen." The courtroom exploded again, voices overlapping in a chaotic wave. Holt slammed his fist on the table, his face red. "She's lying," he shouted. "She's one of them. She's making this up to frame us." The judge's gavel pounded, but Amara didn't flinch. She'd heard that accusation her whole life, one of them. A black woman who dared to rise, who dared to speak. She leaned forward, her voice low but lethal. "You laughed when you thought you'd get away with it. You're not laughing now." The crowd roared, some cheering, others jeering. The judge called for order, but the tension was a living thing, coiling tighter with every second. Amara's heart raced, not from fear but from the weight of what came next. Her testimony wasn't just about Marcus. It was about every black man, woman, and child who'd been erased by a system that protected men like Holt. It was about her father, beaten by cops in '89 for loitering. It was about her brother, stopped and frisked so many times he'd stopped counting. It was about her. The prosecutor, regaining his composure, pressed forward. "Director, why didn't you come forward immediately?" Amara's jaw tightened. "I did. I reported it to the local precinct that night. They dismissed me, said I was mistaken. My footage was inconclusive until I sent it to my team at the FBI. Funny how evidence disappears when it points to the truth." The room buzzed again, the weight of her words sinking in. The officer's lawyer scrambled, demanding a recess, but the judge denied it. "We'll hear this out," he said, his tone heavy with something Amara couldn't quite read: respect, maybe, or dread. She continued, laying out every detail. The officer's taunts as Marcus bled out, their casual dismissal of his life, the way they'd laughed afterward, cracking jokes about another one down. Her voice never wavered, but inside, she was screaming. For Marcus, for Grace, for every name etched into the long, bloody ledger of injustice. As she spoke, she saw the officers unravel. Crane's hands shook. Dunn stared at the floor, his bravado gone. Holt, though, held her gaze, his eyes blazing with defiance. She knew that look: entitlement, unshaken even in the face of truth. She'd seen it in every boardroom, every precinct, every moment she'd been told she didn't belong. But she was here now, and they couldn't look away. The prosecutor stepped back, his questions done. The defense lawyer rose, his face slick with sweat. "Director Jackson," he began, his tone dripping with skepticism. "You expect us to believe you just happened to be there? The FBI director, conveniently witnessing a crime." Amara didn't blink. "I expect you to believe the footage. I expect you to believe the truth." The lawyer faltered, his next question dying in his throat. The courtroom was a powder keg, every word a spark. Amara glanced at Grace again, her eyes a silent vow. "This is for Marcus." For every mother who'd buried a child. For every soul dismissed as one of them. The judge cleared his throat. We'll review the evidence submitted by Director Jackson. Court is adjourned until tomorrow. As the gavel fell, the room erupted in chaos, reporters shouting, spectators arguing, the officers whispering furiously with their lawyer. Amara stepped down, her heart pounding but her resolve unshaken. Grace rose, crossing the room to grasp Amara's hands. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "For him." Amara squeezed her hands, her own eyes stinging. "We're not done yet," she said softly. "Not until they pay." As she left the courtroom, the officers' eyes followed her, their laughter long gone. They knew now they weren't facing a witness. They were facing a reckoning. Amara Jackson walked out of the courtroom into a storm. Reporters swarmed, their microphones thrusting forward like spears, their questions a barrage of noise. "Director Jackson, is this a personal vendetta? Are you targeting law enforcement? What's the FBI's stake in this?" She kept her chin high, her stride unbroken, her silence louder than their clamor. Behind her, the Baltimore sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the courthouse steps, as if the city itself was watching, waiting. Inside her hotel room that night, Amara sat alone, the weight of the day pressing against her chest. The footage she'd submitted, grainy but undeniable, played on a loop in her mind. Marcus Wells's voice, pleading, the crack of gunfire, the officer's laughter, chilling in its casual cruelty. She'd seen too many cases like this, too many lives reduced to case files, too many families left to grieve in the dark. But this time she was in the room. This time she could fight. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was her deputy director, Sarah Nguyen. "Amara, the footage is secure. Chain of custody is airtight. But you've kicked a hornet's nest. The police union's already screaming bias. They're saying you're weaponizing your position." "Let them scream," Amara said, her voice low. "They don't get to rewrite the truth." Sarah hesitated. "Be careful. This isn't just about Marcus Wells anymore. It's about you. They'll come for your reputation." Amara's grip tightened on the phone. She'd known this was coming. A black woman at the top of the FBI wasn't just a target, she was a battlefield. Every decision, every word, every breath scrutinized, twisted, weaponized. But she hadn't climbed this far to flinch now. "Let them try," she said. "I'm ready." The next morning, the courtroom was a pressure cooker. The crowd had doubled, spilling into the hallways, their voices a low roar of anger and hope. Grace Wells sat in the front row again, her hands folded tightly, her eyes fixed on Amara. The officers, Holt, Crane, and Dunn, sat stiffer now, their bravado eroded. Holt's jaw was set, his eyes darting to the exits, as if he could still escape the truth. The judge entered, his face unreadable. "We've reviewed Director Jackson's footage," he began, his voice cutting through the tension. "It has been authenticated and admitted as evidence. Defense, your response." The defense lawyer, a man named Whitaker, rose, his suit crisp but his confidence fraying. "Your Honor, we move to dismiss this case. Director Jackson's testimony is compromised by her personal bias. She's admitted to being emotionally invested, which undermines her credibility." Amara's blood surged, but she kept her face still. Bias. The word was a dog whistle, one she'd heard her entire career. It wasn't about her evidence, it was about her skin, her nerve, her refusal to stay quiet. The prosecutor, Ellis, shot up. "Objection. The footage speaks for itself. Director Jackson's position strengthens her credibility, not weakens it. She's a sworn officer of the law with no motive to fabricate." "Sustained," the judge said, his tone sharp. "The footage will stand. Director Jackson, you may continue your testimony." Amara took the stand again, her heart steady despite the storm brewing around her. She described the aftermath of Marcus's death, the officer's callous dismissal, the way they'd staged the scene to paint him as a threat. She spoke of the precinct's refusal to take her statement seriously, the way they'd smirked when she identified herself as FBI. They thought they were untouchable, she said, her voice carrying the weight of years of frustration. They thought the system would protect them. It always has. The room was silent, every word landing like a stone. She turned to the jury, a mix of faces, some black, some white, some young, some old. Marcus Wells was a father, a son, a man with dreams. He wasn't a statistic. He wasn't one of them. He was human, and he deserved better than to die for reaching for his phone. Grace's sob broke the silence, raw and piercing. The jury shifted, some wiping their eyes, others staring at the officers with growing disgust. Holt's face was a mask of rage, his fists clenched. Crane and Dunn looked like men staring into an abyss. Whitaker's cross-examination was brutal, every question laced with insinuation. Director, isn't it true you've clashed with law enforcement before? That you've pushed for reforms that many officers find divisive? I've pushed for accountability, Amara corrected, her voice calm but unyielding. If that's divisive, then so is justice. He pressed harder, digging into her past, her promotions, her agenda. Each jab was a test, a dare to lose her composure. She didn't. She'd faced worse than Whitaker, men who'd called her worse than biased, who'd threatened her life for daring to exist in their world. She answered every question with precision, her evidence unassailable, her truth ablade. When she stepped down, the courtroom felt different, charged, alive, as if the air itself demanded reckoning. The prosecution called Grace next, her testimony a gut punch. She spoke of Marcus's laugh, his love for his daughters, the way he'd promised to take them to the zoo the day he died. He was my baby, she whispered, her voice breaking, and they took him from me. The officers didn't look at her. They couldn't. Amara watched them, their heads bowed, their arrogance crumbling under the weight of a mother's grief. The trial stretched over days, each one a battle. The defense paraded character witnesses, fellow officers who swore Holt, Crane, and Dunn were model cops. They painted Marcus as a troubled youth, citing a minor arrest from years ago. But the footage was a ghost that haunted every lie, its truth unshakable. Amara's team at the FBI worked behind the scenes, uncovering more a pattern of complaints against the officers, buried reports, silenced witnesses. The case wasn't just about Marcus anymore. It was about a system that let men like them thrive. On the final day, Amara sat in the gallery, her badge heavy in her pocket. The jury deliberated for hours, the courtroom holding its breath. When they returned, the foreman, a middle-aged black woman, stood tall. We find the defendants, Ryan Holt, Michael Crane, and Patrick Dunn, guilty on all counts: murder in the first degree, tampering with evidence, and falsifying reports. The room erupted. Grace collapsed into Amara's arms, sobbing, her gratitude a silent weight. Holt shouted, his voice drowned by the crowd's roar. Crane and Dunn sat frozen, their faces blank. The judge's gavel pounded, but the chaos was unstoppable justice, raw and overdue, spilling over. As the officers were led away in cuffs, Holt's eyes met Amara's one last time. There was no defiance left, only fear. She didn't look away. This wasn't victory, it was accountability, the first step in a long war. Outside, the media frenzy waited. Amara faced the cameras, her voice steady. This isn't about one case. It's about a system that's failed too many for too long. Marcus Wells's name will be remembered, not as a victim, but as a call to change. Grace stood beside her, clutching Marcus's photo. My son's gone, she said, her voice trembling but strong. But his life meant something. Let this be a beginning. Amara returned to D.C. that night, the weight of the trial lingering. Her phone buzzed with messages, support from her team, threats from strangers, op-eds calling her a hero and a traitor in the same breath. She ignored them all, staring out her window at the city's lights. She thought of her father, her brother, the countless faces she'd seen in case files. This was for them too. The fight wasn't over. The system was a beast, slow to change, quick to protect its own. But Amara had never backed down, and she wouldn't now. Marcus's daughters would grow up knowing their father's name wasn't forgotten. Grace would carry her grief, but also her pride. And Amara would keep climbing, keep fighting, keep proving that justice wasn't a Drea myth, was a demand. As the city slept, Amara made a vow. She'd keep pushing, keep exposing, keep standing for those who couldn't. The courtroom had been a battleground, but the war was bigger than her, bigger than Marcus, bigger than anyone name. And she'd fight it to her last breath. What do you think? Where does justice begin? And where does it end? Share your voice, because this story isn't over, it's ours to shape.